Hello there, you're now with me, Hendugui, and welcome to your 5 p.m. English News on TVS. Now let's dive into the headlines for today. Sarawak government mulls to formulate a climate change policy in line with Malaysia's commitment to reduce greenhouse gas GHG emissions under the 12th Malaysia Plan. Sarawak's Deputy Minister of Energy and Environmental Sustainability, Dr. Haslan Abang Hipni, said the policy, which would focus on green energy sources such as hydropower, solar energy and hydrogen, would be drafted after a climate change study is completed.
Haslan hopes to get guidelines on GHG emissions from the study based on sectors such as energy, transportation, industrial and agricultural, as well as through land use and waste management. He said, as Sarawak now prioritizes sustainable development, future development projects will emphasize on environmental impact and biodiversity conservation. In addition, Dr. Haslan said the study on the policy was also expected to provide an action plan to mitigate and adapt to climate change impacts. The minister said the Sustainable Development Agenda must be pursued so that the society has a better future, including a clean environment, a sustainable level of development without excessive waste and pollution, with natural resources and biodiversity protected and conserved.
In recent years, the state government has implemented various measures to reduce the burden of the people, especially those affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And according to the Deputy Minister in Premier of Sarawak's Department for Labour, Immigration and Project Monitoring, Dato' GOV'T Gala, the pandemic has caused a total of 4,037 people in Sarawak to lose their jobs. He added that as an immediate relief, the state government has implemented 8 Sarawak KUCHING Special Assistance BKSS packages amounting to 5.7 billion ringgit to alleviate the burden of the affected people, including those who lost their jobs.
Di antara usaha yang dilaksanakan oleh pihak Kerajaan Sarawak untuk mengurangkan isu pengangguran adalah seperti melaksanakan Graduate Enhancement Training Sarawak ataupun GOV'T untuk graduan di Sarawak. Selain itu, Kerajaan Sarawak melaksanakan program Industri Workforce Development Program dengan kerjasama daripada industri bagi memberi latihan dalam industri.
GOV'T said this in reply to a question by Daro Assemblyman Shafi'i Ahmad during the second meeting for the first term of the 19th Sarawak Dun sitting. Meanwhile, to reduce the unemployment rate, GOV'T added that the government is also implementing the Graduate Enhancement Training Sarawak, or GETS, for graduates in Sarawak.
Recognizing forests as the lungs of our planet, the Sarawak government had pledged to protect this ancient biosphere for the shared prosperity of the future generation. However, it is certainly not a walk in the park, as the timber industry has been one of Sarawak's major income contributors. And with the large-scale land exploitation, especially timber extraction, there is a crucial need to balance nature preservation with industry demands. Thus, the Sarawak government has given its assurance of retaining more than 50% of its total landmass as tropical forests. Deputy Minister of Urban Planning, Land Administration and Environment Dato' Len Talif Saleh said, as the timber industry remains a significant part of the state's economy, issues such as deforestation and land degradation are undeniable in order for development to take place.
Deforestation, as he said, it did happen. There's no doubt about that. But what is important is we have policy guideline, the policy framework that already put in place so that it will allocate area which is for forestry, which is under forestry cover, which is 56%, then which is for agriculture, which is 32%, and the balance of which is for other development.
However, the minister said efforts have been undertaken to ensure the sustainability of its resources.
So if you look at the area that is the total area of landmass of Sarawak is 12.4 million hectares, of which we have dedicated 6 million hectares for forestry, which include permanent forest estates and forest reserve, and 1 million hectares for totally protected area, which is national park, wildlife reserve, and wildlife sanctuary. Which mean out of the 12.4 million hectares, 7 million hectares is dedicated to permanent land use, permanent forest land use, which is represent around 56% of our land mass, which is going to be under forest forever.
As such, Datu Lentali further elaborated that out of the existing 12.4 million hectares, 32% of the land mass has been dedicated to agriculture.
12.4 million, we have already allocated 7 million hectares for under forest cover. Then 4 million hectares is for agriculture. So which means out of the 4 million hectares, which represent around, I would say it's about 32% of our land mass is for agriculture, of which 1.6 to 2 million hectares is under NCR land or under what we call it, native territorial domain.
Therefore, he said that based on the Premier's aspiration, the state will continue to ensure that forests are being restored through various ongoing initiatives.
And then on the forest degradation, yes, the consequential to what we have done over the years, there are certain areas, no doubt, that forest degradation, this is where the Premier emphasized on the need for forest restoration activities in the states. So we are allocating quite a substantial amount of resources and energy to ensure that forests are being restored.
Welcome back. Now, Malaysia and Thailand have agreed to set up a joint special committee headed by the Ministry of Transport, Malaysia's Secretary General, and the Permanent Secretary of Thailand's Ministry of Transport to discuss the finer points related to planning, route and other technical aspects of the proposed Bangkok-Kuala Lumpur High-Speed Rail or HSR project.
Transport Minister Datuk Sri Dr. Wee Ka Siong had earlier on Tuesday held a bilateral meeting with his Thailand counterpart, Saksayam Chitchop. Wee, on his Facebook page, wrote that following the visit by Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob to meet the Thai Prime Minister in February this year, talks had been initiated on a proposed HSR project linking Bangkok and Kuala Lumpur as mooted by our respective prime ministers. On February 26, it was reported that Malaysia and Thailand had agreed to carry out a feasibility study for the HSR route between Kuala Lumpur and Bangkok. Ismail Sabri said The agreement was reached in his meeting with Thai Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha at Government House here in conjunction with his first official visit to Thailand.
Investigators of the China Eastern Airlines that crashed in March are now examining whether it was due to intentional action on the flight deck, as there was no evidence of technical malfunction. On Tuesday, a Wall Street Journal report said flight data from one of the plane's black boxes indicated that someone in the cockpit intentionally crashed the plane.
The Wall Street Journal reported that the airline found no evidence that could determine whether or not there were any problems with the aircraft. In a summary of its preliminary report in April, China's authorities did not point to any technical problems on the 737-800, which has been in service since 1997 with a strong safety record. China Eastern could not immediately be reached for comment. On Wednesday morning, screenshots of the Wall Street Journal story appeared to be censored on China's social media platforms Weibo and WeChat. China Eastern Flight MU5375 was en route to Guangzhou on March 21st when it suddenly plunged into the mountain area in Guangxi province. Authorities have said the pilots did not respond to repeated calls from air traffic controllers and nearby planes during the plunge. One of China's deadliest air disasters in decades, the incident killed all 123 passengers and 9 crew members on board.
Now wrapping up the 5 p.m. news, Liverpool carried their English Premier League title chances to the final week of the season after beating Southampton 2-1 in a Week 37 match in the early morning of Wednesday. Joel Matip's stooping header gave Liverpool the win, leaving Liverpool only a point behind leaders Manchester City and keeping the mighty Reds' hopes up to a deciding match on the final day of the Premier League.
Jurgen Klopp made 9 changes from the team who beat Chelsea on penalties in the FA Cup final on Saturday, with Virgil van Dijk and Mohamed Salah injured and several others rested. Klopp's choice was looking questionable when Southampton took a 13-minute lead through a wonderful Nathan Redmond strike after the winger had cut in from the left flank. But 14 minutes later, Japanese Takumi Minamino fired a fierce shot to level it up. The goal had taken the wind out of Southampton's sails, and it was no surprise when Liverpool secured the 3 points after Costa Simica's corner was headed in by Matip in the 67th minute. Sunday's final round will witness City at home to Aston Villa, and Liverpool host Wolverhampton Wanderers at Anfield. City have 90 points, with Liverpool on 89, meaning that victory for Pep Guardiola's side against Villa, managed by former Reds captain Steven Gerrard, would secure their 4th league title in 5 seasons.
My point of view now, again, second, we think, yeah, of course, City wins that game, but it's football. And we have to first win our game. It's not that we talk about Wolves as they would not be there. That's difficult enough. Imagine that. We go there and have with one ear in Manchester, it's not too far away, and then Wolves, Jimenez, Bam, Huang, whatever, and they're heading the balls in. That's, so we will be 100% focused. But last time when it was that close, City won it because, let me say, 11 inches, ball in, not in, stuff like this. So many things happened during this second part of the season. That I think if we would become champion, it would be deserved as well. But for that, we have to win, and then we have to see.
Liverpool, on the other hand, will fight for their 20th league title. And if they manage, they will share the team with the most title wins, mental, with Manchester United. Sunday's game, however, will not be Liverpool's last game, as the Reds are set to face Real Madrid in the Champions League final on May 28 in Paris.
And that is all for TVS News at 5. Stay up to date with the top stories via our website at TVSTVMY and follow our social media platforms for the latest news and entertainment. I'm Handy Gui. Stay safe. Have a pleasant day.